Hello everyone and welcome to a very special deck tech. In this week's video, I get to showcase the newest version of my favorite commander, the Gitrog Ravenous Ride. The new Gitrog is 5 mana for a 6/5 legendary creature frog horror mount, has trample and haste, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice a creature that's saddled at this turn. If you do, draw X cards, then put up to X land cards from your hand onto the battlefield tapped, where X is a sacrificed creature's power, and has Saddle 1. Saddle is a new ability that says, you tap any number of other creatures you control with total power N or more. This mount becomes Saddle until end of turn. Saddle only is a sorcery. Finally, we can have Thalia riding Gitrog just as Garfield intended. But jokes aside, this is one of the more interesting Gitrog commanders. We don't often see trample and haste in these colors, especially from the command zone. It's a welcome departure in both flavor and ability from the original Gitrog monster, and the newer Thalia and Gitrog monster, which is more of a stacks piece. And don't forget to check out the very special second deck tech at the end of this video. Future Ben here. 2 things I want to cover real quick. First, if you want the written version of this video, you can check out my article over at thecommandersherald.com, linked down in the video description below. And because this commander was just spoiled, I'm sure there will be other cards we want to add to the deck from the set, but I was just too excited to make this. So, without further ado, let's mount up and see what we got. Well, whenever I'm brewing with a new commander, especially one like this that isn't on any website yet, I try to look for commanders that do something similar. A person can only store so many magic cards in their brain at once, unless you're Ben Wheeler. He's the exception. So off to EDH Rec I went to look at 2 commanders for inspiration. Jared, Golgari Lichlord, and Grevin, Praetor Captain. Both these commanders care about the power of creatures, and just like the Gitrog, I was hoping to find some obvious includes I was definitely missing. And it turns out there were quite a few cards I missed. The legendary frog spirits of Yargle, Glutton of Urborg, and Yargle and Multani were no-brainers. The same goes for Wall of Blood, which is a card I just forgot existed. I also added Demogoth Woe Eater, Hunted Bone Brute, Ebon Death Dracolich, and Shakedown Heavy. And finally, the Dragon Spirits Junji the Midnight Sky and Kokusho the Evening Stars make an appearance in the list. They have powerful death triggers, and they're just good cards all by themselves. Next, I wanted to add some Landfall Creatures. I already had the staples with Tireless Tracker, Tireless Provisioner, and Skewed Swarm. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks, or a bunch of trees, a bunch of logs. Anyways, I wanted creatures that grow with lands. Greensleeves Morrow Sorcerer, Uvenwald Hydra, and Ashaya Soul of the Wild. This was a great start, but I still needed more. So I added Avenger of Zendikar, Obnixilis the Fallen, and Territorial Scythecat. These act as secondary win conditions and become great sacrifice targets for Gitrog later in the game. Same is true for Retreat to Habra, Retreat to Kazandu, and Roaring Earth. These enchantments will help grow our creatures or drain opponents. As I brewed this deck, I realized there were 3 things I wanted to add. First was a way to give Gitrog Death Touch. This is easy enough thanks to Bow of Nylea, Bathless Collar, and Vorpal Sword. You see, Death Touch and Trample have this weird interaction, which I'll have linked in the video description below. Next, I want to give him Double Strike so we can double up on his combat damage trigger. There are only 5 equipment that give Double Strike, and Fire Trigger is the best, so it made the list. And lastly, I wanted to re-trigger Landfall. Now in the Gitrog monster deck, and most land decks, we can do this by sacrificing lands and then using Life from the Loam to return them to our hand, and then playing them again. Or using cards like Scape Shift and Nahiri's Lithoforming in conjunction with Splendid Reclamation. But I wanted to return lands to our hand from play. And you know what card does exactly that? I'll give you a second to guess, and let me know in the comments if you got it right. Are you ready? The answer is Storm Cauldron. It is a bit mean, but I think it'll be an absolute house in this deck. But if you think that's the only piece of tech I added to the deck, you're sorely mistaken. The Skullspore Nexus is one of the best cards here. It only costs 2 green with the Gitrog out, and it replaces the creature we just sacrificed, and we can use it to double the power of another creature, or the creature we're going to sacrifice to draw even more cards. Zapandrel's Hunger Dominus buffs our entire board each combat. It is 7 mana, but with how much we ramp, that isn't really a problem. And the latest addition to the deck was Rancor. It's almost an ancestral recall in the deck, since we can buff a creature's power by 2 for only 1 mana, and then it will return itself to our hand. Now of course, what kind of Gitrog deck would this be without some utility lands? The 3 I really want to highlight are Shizo Death's Storehouse, Rogue's Passage, and the Black Gate. These are here to help the Gitrog attack freely. And of course, Reliquary Tower's here to help keep our hand full of all the cards we drew. There are 3 primary win conditions in the deck: Commander Damage, landfall, and card draw. Now, commander damage is self-explanatory, and that requires the least amount of setup. We attack with our commander, and we're good. For landfall, we use Retreat to Hagra and Ob Nixilis the Fallen to drain out the table. And to avoid card draw, we have Psychosis Crawler and Starving Revenant. Revenant does require 8 or more permanents in our graveyard, but that really shouldn't be hard to do. And now for the super secret deck tech that I think you're going to love. Well, it's not a full deck tech, but it's Slime Against Humanity. Yeah, that card that just came out in Murs Karlov Manor, I think it's actually incredible with the Gitrog. If you think about it, you have all these slimes that come into play. You can then sacrifice them using Gitrog's ability to draw a bunch of cards, probably more slimes, and then play more slimes, and as they keep growing, you keep drawing more cards and putting more lands into play. This is especially powerful with cards like Abundance, where you can pick land or non-land cards. So if you have a lot of slimes in your hand, you pick lands. If you need more slimes, you pick non-land. Let me know in the comment section below if you want a full deck tech on this. It'd probably be really fun to make. And make sure to subscribe and hit that bell to get notifications when all my videos go live. I will be doing my usual fun ranking for the entire set, and I'll be doing some deck techs. So let me know in the comment section below what decks you want to see. Alright everyone, I'll see you next time.